Hamas says that Sharia prohibits the marriage of under.
Jalalain was written by two people.
Oh, I see. I thought you meant I've got it.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, no, and it was actually it's an exegesis. It's not a book of law.
Yeah.
So it's important with these masail or these matters for it to go to
Sharia is exegesis. It's not written in actual words.
No.
In the Quran.
The way no. So Sharia law is from the Qur'an and Sunnah, ijma', etc. Ijma' meaning the consensus.
By saying, well, God forbids this, so we will say if you do this.
No. All right. So the books of Islamic law usually stipulate what are the do's and don'ts in Islam. Sometimes mufassirs can also contribute to that discussion, but it's not most fluidly elucidated in those books.
And what if it contradicts the Quran?
The point, okay, what I'm saying is that the way in which jurists, from an Islamic perspective, they come to conclusion is they look at the Quran, and within the Quran they look at the verses which are not abrogated, and the ones which are clear versus the ones which are not clear. If there's specific verses, when there's general ones or whatever.
I hold you to one specific verse which says that which we have allowed,
Yeah,
no man shall
I'm coming.
forbid.
But just so you know the framework. Then you have the hadith.
Yeah.
So after Quran is the Sahih hadith. Then you have different gradations of hadith. So Hasan li ghayrihi,
Are
da'if.
those included in the contribution towards Sharia, the Hassan?
Yeah. So that is contributed towards understanding of Sharia. And then after that you have ijma'. Ijma' is basically the consensus of the scholars.
Right. So the scholars are important in their.
So how
you said that that's scholarly.
Yeah.
You didn't mean
So when we
that
say
necessarily.
consensus, is that when they all come together, when they all, no, not the majority. Some describe it as a majority. Everyone. In language, it actually means everyone.
No, because of all the scholars, there's never going to be agreement among all of them.
Well, that's
consensus of climate scientists say such and such, but that's not all of them.
I understand that's a really good point you're making, and I tend to agree with the sentiment. But there's some things, folks. But there's one thing that I was going to say was that there's some. And I wasn't talking about climate change. I'm not a scientist.
My exegesis.
Yeah. But so with ijma', with consensus, there's a discussion on it. But the point is this: is that there are some things which are definitely consensus. For example, the five prayers a day. Yeah. Or Hajj. Hajj is in the Quran.
That is.
So, for example, the 5 prayers a day, by the way,
Doesn't it say in the morning and the evening and the middle? So that's only 3 in my counting.
yeah, but the 5 prayers by name and so on, and specifics are not in the Quran.
Can we get back to that which is forbidden?
But you need to get the framework first, right? So,
How long
because
is that big framework?
when people say Sharia law, they're talking about what's gone through that framework.
Yes.
Now,
If it
invariably,
doesn't match the Quran, I would suggest that Sharia is in error in the Muslim.
well, yeah, that's obviously, but the point is that the ones who make that decision are scholars amongst themselves,
they're
right?
just human.
Yeah, so they all come to conclusions and so on.
Yep.
They have the exegetical schools. They try their best to come to their conclusion and so on. So now that we've got that out of the way, the question of now marrying. So what is a nikah? A nikah in Arabic language is a kind of aqd, which means it's a kind of agreement.
Yes, like a contract.
Yeah. So the scholars of old, they asked the question: is it possible for someone to have aqd nikah, which is this agreement to marry, without having consummation or full rights? So, for example, this is where the discussion comes.
Sorry, without having
So
you can't consummate something that doesn't exist. Do you mean can they have get married after they've already
No. So, for example, the question is, can two people have this nikah agreement?
Marriage without any.
Without, yeah. So basically, that person's. It's almost. It works
like a platonic marriage.
No, it just works like an engagement.
Okay.
So the scholars differed on this matter. Yeah, some scholars said, yeah, you can have it. So, for example, in the olden days, say for example, I had a child, I had a daughter or something. Yeah.
Within wedlock.
Pardon?
Within a marriage.
No, let's say I had a 5-year-old daughter.
But I'm saying within a marriage context. Your wife had.
I had a daughter.
Yeah.
Let's say a 5-year-old daughter, and I say, well, I've got cancer, or I'm going to go to war, and I think I'm going to die, and so on.
Yep.
So, some scholars said, okay, look, I can draft a nikah agreement between my daughter, who's 5, and a man who's, let's say, 20 years old, but there's no sexual thing that happens. Yeah.
Or would it eventually become that when she was
So
of age?
when does it happen? Now the scholars discuss this. They say, for example, Ash-Shawkani says this is not allowed. Ibn Uthaymeen of our present time says this is not allowed. But some scholars of the madhahib said they're allowed. So I said that these contracts are allowed. That, for example, if they get to a certain age, let's say 12, 13, 14, whatever age of ability, they call it qudra, which is ability. Pardon?
Ability for what?
Ability
to accept
no. Ability to have intercourse.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Does that include emotional or like is it just physical?
Primarily it's physical, but it does include psychological and mental as well. Because if someone is not of mental age, or they haven't got the ability to, or they're judged by the people, their seniors to not be mature for marriage, then surely they wouldn't be put in that position. Okay.
So what I'd ask then is, if Sharia forbids marriage, even in maybe 3 of the 5 schools, or if there's any prohibition on marrying a girl before her menstrual cycle begins, yet the Qur'an says this we find permissible and no man will forbid.
Now, what the Qur'an talks about is divorce, right?
Yes.
So if someone has, the verse you're talking about.
I don't know what you reference.
No, I don't know about Abbas. I'm sorry, I can't follow different. I can only tell you.
That's what I brought to you.
No, all right. So in chapter 66 of the Quran, وَاللَّائِي لَمْ يَحِضْنَ, which means that the ones who have not menstruated yet.
Yeah. Says
all right. So let's say that means that they've never had menstruation. Not that they're pregnant, or which it could also mean. Yeah, it could. Let's say it means.
Yet menstruate means they can't be pregnant.
No. Let's say that's correct.
You're talking about the first and the third category.
No. By the way, some mufassirs have said this means pregnant women.
And they're already included in the.
Yeah, fine. But what I'm saying is, let's take your interpretation, or the interpretation of some of the scholars as well.
Most of them, I would imagine.
Not really, because
it says all those who are pregnant.
Fine.
They can't be the same group of people being discussed. It says women who are pregnant.
Yeah.
Or women who are too old to menstruate.
Yeah. Good point. No, you're right. I'm not disagreeing with you. So the ones who have not had menstruation yet. So here, this would refer to prepubescence.
Yes.
Yeah. Now this question of prepubescent marriage, you're correct. Is it prepubescence with intercourse or not? Now, here's what I'm saying is that this can't be, because it's haram. I'll tell you why it's haram.
Is it, so that's what I'm asking you.
Yeah. So I'll give you some references and sources right now. If the woman, you can go. I don't even think they're in English, so I'll tell you and you can check it out. For example, Kitab al-Insaf, written by al-Mirdawi, who is seen as the final opinion of the Hanbali madhab, in his Kitab al-Hudud.
Most of that was in Arabic. I'm just going to go with all right then.
Yeah. He says, he lists in what he called a chapter of Hudud, which is punishments.
Chapter of what? Sharia
punishments.
Jurisprudence.
Chapter of punishment.
Chapter from the Quran.
No. I'm telling you what the scholars have said, and I'm going to give you.
Chapter of what I'm asking you? Chapter of Sharia.
Yeah. It's a Sharia book. Yeah, or Sharia law. Yeah. It's what I'm saying. It's the final opinion. It's seen as the final opinion of one of the schools of thought, the Hanbali school. 4. He says. No.
So there's
Sunni, and then you have other schools within the Shia. Sunni, there's 4 mainstream ones. Yeah. Now, having said that, what he says is that if someone has intercourse in marriage with someone who's a prepubescent, the question is not whether they're doing the right or wrong thing. The question is whether they should be flogged or not, whether they should be whipped or not. And he was saying that they should be whipped.
So it's still prohibited, they're just now questioning what's the appropriate punishment.
So in other words, according to Al-Mirdawi...
So I would come back to, how can they prohibit something which the Quran says...
No, but the Quran never talks about... Sorry to cut you off. No, I know the verse off by heart, right? Yeah. And I can recite the whole surah off by heart. But here's what I'm saying is that from the beginning of that surah, it doesn't say sexual intercourse.
I appreciate that, but marriage, I would say a consensus of opinion is that marriage includes betrothal. Like you were saying, if you betroth your daughter and you feel that you're going to say eventually, can you take her to wife? For the moment, can you be a protector, companion, maybe parent figure?
What's your name again?
Kate.
Alright, I don't shake hands with women now. No, not even. You know this already.
Do I?
Yeah, anyways.
Study you.
No, you've been here already.
Just the Bible.
But here's what I was going to say to you, right? As I said to you before, in Islam, there are these distinctions. Now you're saying in culture.
The Quran should supersede them.
The Quran doesn't. Listen, very clearly. The Quran never says that nikah yaqtadi al-jima', which means it never says.
Is it a generic verse? Is it saying anything the Quran ordains as acceptable?
Look,
we forbid that.
Let me say this one more time.
We agree.
I just need to make this very. I want to make this very clear for you, right? I've said to you before that this nikah agreement, according to Ibn Qudam al-Maqdisi, he wrote a book called Al-Mughni, and the chapter is Bab al-Nikah. He mentions that nikah is like aqd, which means any agreement, any business agreement, any deal. Now here's what I'm saying to you is that the scholars of old, they debated on whether or not it's possible. Say, if I got a daughter, I can.
That's betrothal, though, is my
right.
It's
but
not marriage.
Whatever. But
marriage ceremony.
the point.
Say, can you please?
Yeah. No. How? This is the question. Now, what if she gets to the age and she says, "I don't want to get married. I don't want it." Now, Ash-Shawkani says, if she says, one other scholar, he says, if she gets to the age of discernment,
Yep.
and she gets to the age of ability, and she doesn't want to be with this person who her father suited her with, then she can reject it based on the hadith. Al-Bikru tusta'dhan, based on the hadith that the virgin has to be asked for permission before marriage takes place. So how do they do jama'? Shawkani says that the way he does jama' between the hadith, or he puts them together, and the ayah and so on and so forth in the Quran, is that he says that, okay, you can have a nikah, technically, with someone who hasn't reached the age of the discernment yet when she gets to the age, she can decide whether or not, number one. Number two, that he can't have sex with her until she gets to the age of ability.
So with arranged marriage, how does that work?
No, that's different. Arranged marriage is consensual from both sides. So just your question on chapter 66 verse 5. What I was saying is, even if we take your interpretation as the only interpretation, which it isn't, there is more than one interpretation. No problem. Let's take your one as the correct one. So the one of she's never had puberty before. They've never had it before, and it's a strong opinion, in my opinion. Yeah, because it says lem. Lem is usually Arabic in the past. Yeah, no problem. You're right. Now the question is, does that mean that there had to be a marriage of sexual?
No.
Right. So fine. So what's the issue?
For divorce in Western law, at least, there needs to be consummation to need it.
But the Quran says.
If I get married and my husband can prove that we have not consummate the marriage, he can just negate or annul
but here's
marriage.
good.
But my other question is: is it a generic verse in the Quran that says that which we find permissible, you will not forbid?
The Quran also says that if you divorce your wives and you never touched them before, which makes it possible that you can divorce someone that you haven't had sex with.
But is 65:4 speaking
Pardon?
about that? Is the verse?
No. Chapter 60. What? Chapter 66, not 65. Sorry, 65. Sorry. So it's the Talaq 65. So chapter 65, verse 4. What it talks about is that it says it's a generic verse, right? Generic verse. Agreed.
Well, it's all women of this category.
Yes,
there
you have it. Yeah. Now, so we say that's a generic verse. The only thing that can do ikhtisas of it is of something which is a specifier. So there's two specifiers the scholars use. One, the fact that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, if we take the hadith of 6 to 9, that he waited because he married at 6 and then he consummated at 9. So for that waiting period to take place.
This is a divorce.
No. Can you give me the evidence? Give me the evidence. Okay. If you don't give me the evidence, then I'm going to have to apologize to the camera. Because you know what I'm going to say to you, my friend, yeah? Sorry, what's your name? Okay, whatever your name is, yeah? I'm going to tell you something. Such a hadith does not exist in the literature, and you've lied. So he said that he does foreplay from 6 to 9. I'm going to say to you right now, I'm going to humiliate you right now. Yeah, you're humiliated already. You know why? Because you've mentioned something that does not exist in the literature. I'm putting my own reputation on the line right now by saying that such a thing does not exist in even one hadith in any of the 42 main books of hadith. 42, not even just the 6, 42 books. It doesn't exist. It's not even mawdu'a. There's not even a written element of it. If you can find it and read it with the sanad al-sahih, then you would have shut me up. But if you can't, you're going to have to apologize to the camera. Now everyone's seen your face. You're going to be humiliated in front of at least 20 or 30,000 people. Whatever your name is, everyone sees your face. Since you're the one who tried to come to me in Speaker's Corner and say that my prophet had foreplay with Aisha at such an age, Now you're gonna run away. Yeah, you better run away. This is the thing. Look, so you are very dignified in your approach, and you are coming humbly.
Islamic website.
What's Islam website? Give me a hadith number. Get me the book of hadith.
واحتجزوا أيضا بما روى هاشم بن عروة عن عائشة أن النبي سلم تزوجها وبنت السبع سنين.
وصل قلت له مفاخذة.
وبنت التسع سنين.
طيب where's مفاخذة?
شو مفاخذة؟
You said مفاخذة in front of the camera أخي. مفاخذة means you're touching.
الفقهاء على أن عقد النكاح على الصغيرة صحيح ولو كان ذلك قبل بلوغها لقوله تعالى لأن لن يحضن الطلاق.
واللائي لم
يحضن.
لم. You can't speak, bro, you want to be Arab. Read it properly. You can't, it's your... Wallahi. Bro, you can't speak Arabic, you can't speak English. Please, keep to yourself. Look, you can't, I've asked you, where's Mufakhadha? Where's the Mufakhadha? Where's the Mufakhadha? Where's the Bana Biha wa bint 9 sanawat? Where's it say Mufakhadha? Huh? That's what I thought. Look at you, you're humiliated in front of my presence. That's right. That's right. Get all of your people. No, seriously, because you come in and saying that my prophet, he did mufakhadha with a woman, with a girl at a certain age. Now I've caught you like the boy that you are. You're finished. You are finished. You're finished in my presence, just like David Wood was finished. And that's why you... Yeah, he was finished. Listen, try your best, try it. I know it burns you. I know it burns the people. Look, I know it burns. All of you can come. You're finished. You're finished. Sorry, man, you're finished. You've come, you tried your best. Who's next? Who's next? Are we done? Are we done here? Are we done here? No. He came to me saying that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did mufakhadha, which means, no, it means he done friction like touching the legs of a... Yeah. Now, I want to know. I've refuted it quite convincingly. So are you going to apologize in front of the camera, in front of the thousands of people are watching, boy? Huh? Oh yeah. Keep looking. It's not there, brother. It's not there. Do you know what else is not there? Trinity in your Bible. That's what you should be looking about. Yeah, I know, because you come with the same people. Look. Look. It's finished. Anything else?
Just one verse.
You're okay. Sorry, I'm just humiliating him because he deserves the humiliation.
God can judge him.
No, I'll judge him. He's been humiliated, dejected, rejected, humiliated, embarrassed, and he's been put under my foot metaphorically today because he tried to come and say that Prophet al-Mufakhadha. So here, he's going to look all over the internet on Google. He's reading things he can't even. So his mother tongue. I've been born and raised here, my man. I know it's your mother tongue, and you can't even read the Qur'an. Come on, man. Sorry, I'll come after. Yeah. Afterwards. It's his mother tongue. حدثنا كذا وكذا كذا واللائي لم يحضن. Every single thing he couldn't read, and he's reading it. It's finished. You're finished.
This is the way
you
read your Quran.
Anything else?
This is the way you read your Quran.
That's what I thought. So now what hadith? Where does it say mufakhadha?
All this hadith.
Where's mufakhadha?
Do you want to ignore this?
Where's it? Read mufakhadha. I want to hear mufakhadha.
Mufakhadha. What is he doing with it?
Where's mufakhadha?
What he's doing with it?
Now where's mufakhadha? Get the evidence. Give the evidence.
What he's doing with
Nothing. He wasn't in the same house. Where's the evidence?
What you doing? No mufakhadha?
Yeah, no mufakhadha. Yeah. Where's the evidence? No. Where's the evidence? هاتوا برهانكم قل هاتوا برهانكم كنتم صادقين. Bring your evidence if you are truthful. You know this Arab. You're Arab with no Arabi.
البخاري في
When he will bring the evidence,
let him go.
البخاري في صحيح عن عائشة رضي الله عنها تزوجني النبي وانا بنت 6 سنين.
Yeah. Where's it say mufakhadha?
تمزق شعري
Where's mufakhadha?
وارجحها.
So where's the same mufakhadha?
صحيح ان عائشة النبي تزوجها 7 سنين.
So where's mufakhadha?
وسكن اما من جهة مفاخذة الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم لخطيبته عائشة فقد كانت في سن السادسة من
Where's the hadith? That's not hadith. That's not hadith.
Where's that?
No, it's not hadith. It's a Facebook post. That's a Facebook post on a Christian site. Akhi, you're finished. You are done. Where's the hadith?
السادسة من عمرها.
Where's the hadith?
معالية صغر سنها.
Where's the hadith?
كان الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يضع إربه.
Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Get off here, brother. Get off here. It's over. So Where's the hadith? Where's the hadith? That's the first post.
You said
It's over,
Allah
man.
prayed
It's finished.
on
So,
Muhammad.
ladies and gentlemen, yeah, look at that. Yeah, please look at it. Where's the mustard? Where's the mustard? Where's the hadith?
Hey, I read it to you.
What's up? Did you also website? It's a Facebook post.
Come on.
Yeah, who's that? Who's speaking?
Listen,
Who's speaking?
Aisha.
Who's speaking? Aisha saying أما من جهة المفاخذة بخطيبته عائشة. So Aisha speaking in the third person غائب. أخي, you don't know Arabic. Get out of here, man. You're finished. You're finished. If it was her speaking, she would say in متكلم مفاخذته لي. She would say that. أخي, you don't know Arabic. Get out of here, man. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, he tried his best. And this, we look. Where is it? Where's the hadith? Where's the hadith? That's fine. He finished. It's done now. What can we say? Look, this is the reality of the situation. When these guys, they come to me, and they try their best to try and throw Rami of tuhamat and fabrications, they get crushed under the foot of the intellect.
This is your hadith.
You don't know how to read.
This is your hadith.
Speak English, brother.
This is your hadith.
Please forget about Arabic. Can you speak English first?
Yeah. This is your hadith.
Yeah.
He has read it.
Yeah, I don't know. What hadith? Go on. What's the sanad? What's the sanad? Go on. What's the sanad? Look at his face.
Read it again. Read it again.
Anyways, who's next? I'm done with you, man. Look at your scum.